certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law 30A 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For the meeting members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting or participate in the public hearing may do so in the following manner: www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So tonight, at this time, the town planner is unable to attend our meeting tonight, and we have one member who is running a little bit late, but we're going to start anyways. Jesse Stein will be joining us shortly. So the first item on the agenda is a discussion item, Master Plan Committee update. Mrs. Luttrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Master Plan Committee will be meeting again on Wednesday, the 18th, at which time we will discuss the goals and objectives for the schools and for recreation. We'll also be looking at the municipal vulnerability plan and see if there's any goals that we need to add as a result of that plan. Thank you.
Anyone, questions, comments, compliments to Mrs. Luttrell? Everyone's clapping, Mimi. Thank you again for your long, hard work on this one. Okay, next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing. 7 Chestnut Hill Road, major site plan approval. This public hearing has continued from July 13th, August 10th, September 14th, September 28th, October 19th, and November 2nd. We have had some movement on this. And Sarah, are you able to update us on the status?
Yes, I am. We did receive a second submission on November 9th, and we distributed that to the planning board as well as the town departments and Fuss and O'Neill for additional review. We, at this time, have not received those review comments back from Fuss and O'Neill yet, but we anticipate those coming in this week. And I'm just promoting everyone. So they can. Alrighty, are y'all set?
Sarah, maybe I read it wrong or you said it wrong. I thought we did receive Fuss and O'Neill's comments on Chestnut Hill.
Oh, sorry,
we did.
We did. I apologize. Yeah. I'm one ahead. I apologize.
So those comments were very, the technical part of the project seems to be almost all wrapped up with the plans and the working it out with the Conservation Commission and the conservation restriction. So if I read it right, the Fuss and O'Neill comments were basically waivers that the planning board has to decide on whether to grant or not. And it seemed like those waivers are consistent with what we had been talking about over the months So, are you there, Bob? And DA,
Yes.
would you like to add to that? I know, well, I guess I'll say it now. The planning board advertised meeting schedule has us meeting again on December 14th. So today's November 16th. That's almost a month. So the board feels that we can add a meeting in between, which is November 30th. And since this project and perhaps others that are in public hearing can get a lot closer to approval or action or a vote if we insert another meeting of the planning board on November 30th. And I think Karina spoke with you, Bob, and DA relative to that.
That's correct. We
Yes.
be very appreciative of another meeting prior to the 14th.
So that will be the plan. Karina indicated that she would work with you on any conditions ahead of time so that those would be available to the public and the board, and perhaps have the project ready to be voted on November 30th.
That would be terrific. Thank you.
It's important, or actually it's essential, that any conditions, that the plans be complete and ready to go, and that any conditions be in writing in order for the board to vote. So we're at that point, we're on that threshold of getting there, and pretty confident that on November 30th, we should be able to entertain a motion to take action on the site plan. Did you either of you have anything more to say or to add?
Well, I want to be respectful of your time, but it provide a revised parking plan. I don't know if the board had a chance to review it at prior to our last meeting, but we essentially have expanded the CSA parking from 14 to 25, and then have 7 additional spaces there for a total of 32 spaces there, which will be just short of the 41 that would be required under the zoning bylaw for the occupancy of the barn. So that is one of the areas that we had requested a waiver. We've revised the photometric lighting plan for the property based on the changes in the parking area. We're looking at essentially the same fixtures that we had presented to the board before. There are 7 bollards along the pathway, but there are 4 pole lights in the parking lot at 15 foot. They're a wooden post with a metal cross bracket and downward facing lights. So all the lights are focused down and back in towards the property. Happy to answer any questions, but those were the major sort of updates since the last meeting.
One of the Fuss and O'Neill comments had to do with a paved entrance, a paved transition from the roadway pavement into the what you're proposing would be a gravel parking lot. If you're not able to speak to that tonight, you should be prepared on the 30th, but I saw that you requested that be waived, that it not be paved.
No, well, perhaps Corey could answer that, but I think we were talking about the length of it. We had proposed 9 feet deep into the parking lot as opposed to the 15 that had bylaws. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. Rather than
So
15 feet, we were only proposing to pave at 9 feet.
Oh, okay, I didn't read it right then. So there will be a portion of pavement from the roadway into the site.
That's correct.
That's correct, yeah.
just not as deep.
That's correct.
Any questions or comments from the board?
None for me.
Mimi, Mrs. Littrell.
Thank you. Just quickly, so all the parking is now in the farmstead envelope,
That is correct.
and so there's no overflow anywhere else?
That's right.
Okay. And the 3 driveways that were originally proposed, you're only redeveloping one?
That's right. We're not doing any modifications to the north lot there up by the trailhead. And the other one is outside of the envelope. So we're concentrating only on that space within the farmstead.
Fabulous. And thank you for the handicap drop-off spot close to the barn.
You're welcome.
More than
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Planning board? So, Sarah, do we have let's see. So the the approval period for this project is November 20th, which if we plan to meet on November 30th, we will need an extension of the approval period in order to continue to act and in order to continue the public hearing. Is that Sarah, have you seen anything like that? I thought Corina told me we have one.
Yep, we have an extension request for that to extend.
Just like the last one, Bob?
Yes, that's correct. So we have it in hand. Karina suggested we wait till the board deliberates on the actual date that it would be extended to.
So the approval period usually would go to the Friday after the meeting, which would be December 4th. So is that your request to extend the approval period to December 4th, close of business?
Yes, that's correct.
Mr.
So moved.
Mills,
So moved.
motion's been made and seconded to extend the approval period to December 4th, close of business. Any discussion? All in favor? Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Okay, now that we've extended the approval period, it's allowed to entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to 7:05 PM on November 30th.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we continue the public hearing for 7 Chestnut Hill to 7 PM or 7:05 PM on November 30th, 2020.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Oh, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Okay, I know the town planner will be in touch with you to put the final touches on conditions and set the table for a possible vote on November 30th.
Very good. We look forward to working with her.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, next item on the agenda is 60 Richards Road, Mooney Baseball Field Lights, major site plan approval. This public hearing is continued from October 19th and November 2nd. So we have a new set of plans that we received late last week. Those were distributed, thanks to Sarah, to the planning board members and also to our consultant, Fussin O'Neill. We had hoped to get the comments back today. It's not possible, but we're expecting them in the next couple of days. So we will have some discussion tonight if we want on the revised plans. But really can't move too far forward without our consultant, especially the electrical portion of the project. We need to really receive and hopefully get the green light from our consultant. So, Sarah, do you have anything to add before I open it up?
No, the update that I just gave a few minutes ago was the intended update for this particular project. So, the second submission was received on the 9th. It is out to Fuss and O'Neill, and we're just awaiting those return comments.
And that submittal has a date of November 9th, right?
Yes.
The booklet is dated revised November 9th. I just want to make
Ninth
sure
is
that
when the
everyone,
9th is when we submitted the printed and the PDF, so it should say the 9th. Yes.
okay. Tim, good evening.
Good evening. Sorry to bust in
Welcome.
like that. So.
No, thank you for doing so. Welcome back. So the plans are in several ways different than what was submitted before. The label of the plan, the arrangement of some of the plan items are a little bit different. Some of the details still need, from my review, still need to be cleaned up a little bit, but we'll wait. The most important thing is the technical review by our consultant. So as I said, for those who may have joined just now, the board will be meeting. We've agreed to insert an additional meeting and not wait until our regular meeting on December 14th. So we plan to meet on November 30th. And so if we get the comments from Fuss and O'Neill in the next couple of days, there'll be plenty of time for the proponents to review them and hopefully get them straightened out so that the path will be a lot clearer toward having a vote on this project. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Mills,
No questions.
Mrs. Luttrell?
I have a couple questions. The response to comment 11 regarding light trespass says that the plans have less than 1% at the neighboring property line. But in the illumination summary, it shows like 2% and 4% at the property line. And the zero trespass is like way up in the abutting property's front yards. So I'm wondering what the disconnect there is.
Are you on to take that?
Yeah, I'm on. Yeah, one of the things that was happening was that the light trespass was reduced on their foot candles at that pass. I'd like to have at the next meeting Mike address some of that, as some of that is related to height at 0 and height at 3 feet. But you can see if you go to the sheet that is now at the property line is 0.02 is the light trespass. So the maximum light trespass at height 0 feet above grade is 0.02. So that's less than 1 0.1.
But 0.02, isn't that 2%?
No, 1% would be 1.0 and then is 1 foot candle. So a percentage of a foot candle, so it's 0.2, 0.02, 1 foot candle is 1 foot candle. So it's less than a foot candle, which is.
But is it more than 0? Which is what our bylaw requires?
It is more than 0. It was reduced, as you can remember, it was higher on the, and with the lamping and relighting, they got it to 0.04. Again, I'd like to have Mike kind of address that as obviously as the Musco rep from the aiming of the lights.
Is that,
He's not on the line. Unfortunately, he's not on the line tonight.
all right, because that's my major concern, because the Choate Field had lots of issues with trespass on neighboring properties. And these houses are much, much closer than the residents from Choate. So
Sure.
I'd like to see 0.
I'll have Mike address that. I mean, obviously 1 foot candle is at 0.04 is a minimal amount of light. So I'd like him to address that at the next meeting.
Okay. And my second question was, the pin oaks look like they're going to be planted right on the other side of the stone wall.
Yeah.
And how will they be planted without disturbing the stone wall?
Well, there is a space between the stone wall and the fence, so it would be placed in that area. The root balls is 3 feet, so with an oversized root ball, it's a 3 foot hole and a 3 foot depth hole. So you have a 3 foot cubic area. There is room for those trees to be there.
And then the last question is, are there obstruction lights on top of the light poles?
There are not.
Are there plans for them to be?
You're breaking up. They're not currently not a requirement.
I thought it was a request from the MedFlight pilot.
There was a line in the MedFlight pilot asking. It wasn't a request. It read as. I'd have to get the exact language, but it says a potential. But again, it currently isn't a requirement. It wasn't
Conversation we had was more of it would be nice, but it's not necessary given the space.
right.
Wasn't there a note from the fire chief confirming what you're saying, Art?
Yes, we did provide a letter from the fire chief as well as the pilot actually, and Tim was there. They actually flew in and landed the helicopter as part of our request. So they've actually been there, landed there, and indicated that they have more room than they would need, and really didn't see a major interruption from the light poles.
Thank you.
Mr. Stein, any questions, comments?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Mrs. Houlihan?
Yeah, just to follow up on Mrs. Luttrell's question of the light trespass. So our bylaw is 0 light trespass. So will you be seeking a variance for that?
I would assume we would have to ask for a variance for that.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Questions, comments?
You have one hand raised. Kristen Laval, you all set?
Hi, yeah, thank you. Just for my own education on the .02 light spillage onto a public way, if I'm understanding correctly, like how do street lights factor into this? Because it would seem that the light's already there. So I just wanted for my own education to understand that a little bit better.
Well, it's not the public way that's the concern. It's the property line of the abutting properties.
The ones across the street directly on Parkerville there?
Yeah, on the other side of the street.
Okay, so again, I'm just kind of curious where there's street lights already, how that factors in.
So the spillage is greater on the other side of the street, and it reduces across Parkerville, and it should be 0 when it hits the abutting property.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't see any other hands up.
So as we,
Wait,
As we-
sorry.
okay,
Someone just put their hand up. Going to allow Brian Sinclair to talk. Brian, you're muted if you just want to unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
So I guess just in terms of process, it seems like, this is taking quite a bit of, time. It's been like 3 years. Is there something we could speed this up a bit? I guess, we've got these consultants working for the town. We handed them new plans last week. Do we have to wait to the end of the month to get this, next conversation going? Can we do it sooner? Is my question. It just seems like it, just doesn't seem like a very efficient process, I guess is what I'm thinking. One person raises a question, we schedule a meeting for 2 weeks later. 2 weeks later, someone else raises a question. We schedule a meeting for, 2 weeks later from that. I'm just thinking if there's a way to just come up with an efficient way, just identify everything that needs to be done, and then just, get it done all at once.
I wish we could. What you should know, what the public should know is that, and I think, Tim, you'll verify this quite a bit, that there's a lot of discussion, mostly technical discussion between the town planner and other technical people within the town in between these meetings to try to resolve things that probably never get elevated to a discussion during the public hearing. So there's constant movement, even though it may not seem that way. There's constant progress being made. We have this new set of plans. And I appreciate you saying that, the project's been around for over 3 years. The planning board has had this is our 3rd meeting within 1 month. We've only had this project on our meeting schedule since October 19th. And we've agreed to insert an additional meeting because it's been our experience when the project gets this close to being resolved that we can add a meeting and maybe try to wrap this public hearing up and bring it to a vote in the next 2 weeks rather than in another month. So that's the plan, and believe that between now and November 30th, there'll be considerable discussion between our consultant and the proponents and Tim Davis to try to iron out and make it to a point on November 30th where it's just a matter of getting any conditions and final actions by the board in order. At least that's my hope.
That's our hope as well.
All right, no, I appreciate that. Just, it just seems like, I guess it's just, a little frustrating, that's all. So it'd be good if we could come up with a way to, make things more efficient, I guess is my point. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have several more hands. David?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's David Fialco, 10 Lyman Street in Southborough. The word efficiencies just came up, and I wanted to speak to that quickly because at the last meeting, we made it a point to ask if there's anything else that needs to be addressed, that it be brought up at the time of that meeting. And so when there's more, and things like there are more neat details that need to get cleaned up and several ways that this is different than before, and we're talking about reserving those comments tonight, I think it grows some public concern over efficiencies, especially when we're talking about paying Fuss and O'Neill and other consultants that don't work for free. Tim has his team, the gentleman from the lights, Mike from Musco, was going to be here tonight, but my understanding was that he didn't come because we didn't have the Fuss and O'Neill report. So he isn't here to answer Mimi's question. My understanding, and it's a layperson understanding, is that there is no spillage. I can't speak to that technically, but the gentleman who was going to speak to that was going to be here until we were told that Fuss and O'Neill didn't have responses. Now, I know that there were 50 comments because the chair of this committee mentioned it several times during the last meeting. I personally read them. They weren't as critical as was suggested, but the responses were submitted. It wasn't late last week. It was last Monday. And for whatever reason, Fuss and O'Neill, who's paid, didn't get them to us. And I don't think that's acceptable from the town who's paying them to have those sorts of delays. And so when we talk about efficiencies, I think everyone agrees we want this to be an efficient process. So if there's anything else that this board needs Tim's team or any of the professionals to respond to, I would just urge that those be brought up now or in advance of the next meeting with sufficient time to address them so that there aren't more inefficiencies. There are a lot of people, as no surprise to you, that are interested in this project and want to see this done, completed efficiently and correctly. So thank you.
Thank you.
Brian?
Hi, Brian Diesenhaus, 2 Fox Hill Drive. 1, just want to voice my support for the project. And 2, I have a question on the spillage. And there was a question about a variance. I was just wondering if the variance, is that made to this group or is that someone else that the variance has to go to? And 2, doesn't the town own like the first 10 feet of every property, right? So is the spillage really on town property or is it on the abutters property? And how does that play into it? I know the town owns some portion of everyone's property, right? So is it really spillage on the individual abutters property or is it town's property? And does that make a difference? That's a question for the board, right? I mean,
It's a question to our proponent. Do you know the answer, Tim? Yeah, Art?
It is to the property line is the owner's property line. So that is the line. What you're talking about is a setback or a right of way, which is if the town wanted to do things like sidewalks, things like that.
Okay.
There is a section. The property line is the property line.
Okay. And who's the variance have to get put to?
I don't believe variance was the correct language. It was essentially a waiver that we would have to ask for.
All right.
And that waiver would be granted by the planning board.
Okay. Thank you.
And we have Mike.
sorry, Mike Murphy, 7 Killam Farm Lane. I'd like to get an understanding of how this process works in the intervening weeks between planning board meetings. I understand, Mr. Morris, from your comments that Karina and Tim are in regular conversation, but you yourself mentioned, and my second question to you is going to be, can you enumerate the list of things that need to be cleaned up, please? But I'd like to understand Tim's ability to interact with members of the planning board in between meeting sessions, that if there are comments, to Mr. Sinclair's point, to Mr. Fialco's point, we aren't waiting until we regroup again in one of these virtual sessions to find out that somebody didn't put the letter T in a word, right? I know they have to be technically correct, but this is brutal. So I'd ask you please to first explain how the process works in between meetings, what the planning board is able to do. And secondly, I'd like you to please enumerate the list of your, whatever Tim needs to clean up, please, so that he's able to do so before the next time we meet, whenever that is. Thank you.
Well, the planning board members, although I'm an engineer, most board members are not. And so have limited technical, abilities. And so we have to rely on our consulting engineer. So we have a new set of plans that I was able to look at and other board members have been able to look at. But some of these items, some of the actual plan sheets are different. And it takes a while to go through those to make sure that something didn't get added that we weren't aware of, or deleted that we weren't aware of. And again, the board members were elected, planning board members were not elected as engineers. This is a technical project, even though it's only 4 lights. As we said before, it really has to be done properly and safely. So, and it is to some extent beyond, just an average person's technical abilities, because we get into these heavy wires and switches and fuses and things like that I think most of us are unable to determine if they're right or not. So we have to rely on our consultant. And we expect, and I know that the town planner, she also is a registered professional engineer. Although she doesn't act in that capacity for the town, we're blessed to have her with that talent. She's able to instruct our consultant to make sure that they clearly define any questions or concerns, and make recommendations or recommend who would be responsible for explaining or performing the corrective action. So those are the type of discussions. Sometimes they're only a few minutes, sometimes they can be hours of detailed discussion. And things get worked out. As we said, there was, 50 comments initially, and that number should be drastically reduced.
And then, Mike, to address Mike, a numerical sense on it, since the submittal, I've had 5 inquiries from Karina regarding the plans, none of which should actually change what's on hard print. That we were anticipating her to bring up tonight, so we'll push those answers on to the next meeting. But to date, we've had 5 things brought up between Art and I for this set of plans. And then, like Don said, it's our anticipation as the applicant, given that Art answered pretty clearly every single point from Fuss and O'Neill, that it's pretty much our expectation that next document's going to come back clear. So we're gonna hope for that.
Okay. And Mr. Morris, what about the second question I asked, your list of things that needed to be cleaned up?
Well, I don't have that list because we don't have Fuss and O'Neill's comments. I mean, if they come back and they say everything's all set, the only item left to address is a waiver for .02 foot candle trespass. If that's the only item that needs action, then the board would entertain that at our next meeting. It's probably going to be more than that, but it'll boil down to a point where either the engineers agree on what is to be built and agree that the plan clearly shows that, or points of disagreement where planning board would be asked to make a decision between what's being proposed and what our consultant is advising, or somewhere in the middle. One at a time, we take those and would make the decision so that we can keep moving, get it resolved.
Okay.
So,
is it fair? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so I think the short answer is we don't have the list yet of outstanding items. And as Tim said, hopefully that list is pretty close to zero.
Okay. So just for my own clarification, then, when you mentioned there were things that still needed to be cleaned up, that was in reference to the pre-existing 50 comments from the last time Fuss and O'Neill delivered comments?
Not necessarily. Like I said a few minutes ago, this new set of plans, for example, there's a new sheet called G1.01, General Notes. The previous set of plans did not have a sheet called G1.01, General Notes. So if you look at that plan, there's a lot of general notes, and each of those has to be looked at. That's an obvious, somewhat non-technical observation that we would make, that there's a new sheet, G1.01, with a lot of notes on there.
Okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean it requires cleanup, right? It just means it requires Fuss and O'Neill review as a new item, correct?
I think so. But, if one of the notes is highly technical or even technical, or a note that was on the previous set of plans has dropped off, or new notes have been added, we have to understand the significance of those actions, whether it's been added or deleted, and its individual meaning.
Okay. I have one question, and then I promise I will stop talking.
No, you can keep talking.
So, thank you. So the plans were delivered to Fuss and O'Neill last Monday. What is the technical timeline from the town's perspective as to how long they should be taking to deliver comments back? Is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 5 days? Business? Like, what is the general guideline for what we're paying them for?
It's usually to try to get it varies. It depends on the size of the plans, the degree of complexity. But we try to get them to provide the comments back to us before the next meeting. But it doesn't always work that way. They're not just sitting there waiting for us to give them things. They have other clients, and we understand that. And we discussed that when we renew their contract, and the turnaround time, and the quality of the notes, of the comments. We've had other consultants years ago where we'd get comments back and we didn't even understand what the comments were. Fuss and O'Neill, we think, does a great job with that, but it's variable.
Okay. Does this qualify as from your perspective, a large set of plans, a small set of plans, medium? I'm just curious.
Well, we're starting to get into opinions here. It's not a very big project. It's 4 lights and associated wiring and devices. But again, this project involves children, and so we have to make sure that we're very careful and make sure that we get it right. But no, it's, relatively small.
Okay. Oh, I mean, that's really what I'm asking. I mean, I've heard it said before, and just for those that don't know, I am the president of Southborough Little League currently. I've heard it said before here and elsewhere that, baseball doesn't have the interest or the safety of children in mind, when that is the farthest thing from the truth. I mean, the lights are the reason we're asking, and we've been a part of this process, right? It is tantamount that, we get these to be able to play baseball safely. So thanks for answering my questions. The reason I'm asking about the size of the project is it seems like a week, and I understand that they are, servicing many clients beyond the town of Southborough. But for a small project, a week lead time seems more than sufficient from my perspective as a project manager, not for technical civil engineering drawings, but software engineering. But I guess it is what it is. So I appreciate you answering all my questions, Don. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have a few more hands up. Jason?
Sure. Hi, Jason Malinowski, 1 William Cleary Lane. I should note that I'm a member of advisory and chair of capital planning, but I'm speaking on my own accord. As many of you know, I was chair of the public safety building project when it came before. Most of you were on the planning board at that time. And I've followed this project probably closer than many of the other projects that have come in between those times as the parent of young children that I hope will enjoy baseball as much as I did as a kid. And the one thing that strikes me here, and Don, you'll probably appreciate this based on the conversations that we had during the project, is, given the level of technical uncertainty here in the varying degrees of experience that's on your board, I know the one thing that it took to get the public safety building over the hurdle was having Fuss and O'Neill actually come to it was either the third or the fourth year, and I can't remember which one it is at this point, just to have all the right parties in the same room, right? Like I hear, Art has some expertise, but the lighting people aren't here tonight, right? And then obviously, unless you have a clean bill of health from Fuss and O'Neill before the next meeting, I'm just thinking the most efficient use of time and watching kind of how this process has unfolded, that might be a good, suggestion that I would just throw out there for the board's consideration. And my second point is, as many of you know, I am a firefighter in another community and have had the opportunity to actually land medical helicopters on playing fields, many of which were playing fields that have lights probably much larger than what we're contemplating here. And what I would suggest is if there are questions for the life flight crew or anything related to the medical helicopter operations, that Chief Achilles should be made aware and in this instance and invited to that next meeting too, where you're hoping to make some decisions one way or another. Because I think what I have at least found working through, the town and how this all operates, we're a lot better with all the right people in the same room as opposed to kind of the back and forth that at least it seems that's happening here. And obviously it's to no one's fault, but, I think it's just how you bring this to closure to appease, all parties.
Jason, I think we have in writing the resolution relative to those lights, the beacons, that they're not required. The fire chief was involved in that.
Yeah, I think it was Mrs. Luttrell had some questions on it, so.
No, I think we're at a point where we all agree that it's been covered, and I'm glad she brought it up because, it's in the public hearing, and as far as all of us are concerned and have looked at the documents, we feel that it's been properly looked at and resolved. Anyone else, Sarah?
Yep, we have Kristen one more time. Where'd you go? Okay, there we go.
Hi, I'm on a headset. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this time I am coming in as a citizen, not as the member of the Recreation Commission. So these are just my own personal statements. And it is going to be an opinion, Mr. Morris. You just mentioned that this is not a very big project, yet here we are many years later. I think sometimes it's implied that it's like, well, this just came in front of the planning board, you know, officially, I guess, in the last month, but we know that a lot of work has gone on for years at this point. So I think that needs to be highlighted. This by no means is like a brand new topic that came to the plate, you know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. But what I want to suggest is, you know, things that are frustrating, right, are, and that quite frankly don't look good. They don't look good for rec. They don't look good for you. Is, you know, little things like light spillage, like not little things, but the topic of light spillage. We've hit on that the last 2 times, but yet here we are talking about it again with some new information brought to light. You know, there's 2/100ths of light spillage being added by these lights. There's street lights that certainly must offer much more than that. But yet, again, if we need to go for the variance, we go for the variance. However, this is the first time that came up when we talked about it the last 2 calls. Anyways, so we'll do what we need to do. But at the end of the day, I do want to discuss, suggest, and I also come from kind of a project management background, that when this is all said and done, if not a very big project results in this much cost with consultants and this much time and this much angst, quite frankly, amongst the community, we need to do a postmortem and figure out how we're going to do this better going forward. So we don't end up in a situation like this where, you know, a particular project takes years to implement. And I'm not pointing blame to anyone. It's just clearly things did not go well, and we need to sit down and figure out what we need to do better as boards and commissions, et cetera, working together. And the last thing I just wanted to mention is that I agree that with Jason that perhaps, you know, we don't need that Fuss and O'Neill should be here, right? It would be much more productive if we had everyone in a room. You know, it sounds like we're fine in terms of the med flight, et cetera, and we're okay there, but Fuss and O'Neill clearly we're not on the same page with. And while we're paying consultants to come and show up at these meetings, such as Art, it seems that Fuss and O'Neill should be here as well. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sorry, that's everybody.
Any more questions or comments from the board? Tim? All right.
So just to clarify, so I too have the request for continuation that I received from Sarah this morning. So we're requesting to go to the 30th, which is 1 day past the original deadline.
Yes, please. And then the decision date would be the 4th, the following Friday.
Sarah, I'll have that too tomorrow morning.
Great, thank you.
Hold on. You're requesting that the approval period be extended to December 4th?
As stated by you from the prior, so I'm following lead of the last project. So the 30th for the meeting and then the 4th for the approval.
Okay. That's your request.
Yes.
Mr. Mills.
I make a motion, we grant the extension of the 60 Richard Road, Mooney Field Lights major site plan approval to December 4th as requested by the applicant.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to extend the approval period to December 4th close of business. Any discussion? All in favor? Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Okay, we've extended the approval period. Now we need to continue the public hearing to November 30th at 7:10 p.m. Mr.
So
Mills.
moved.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Kroll, yeah.
Houlihan, yes.
Okay. We'll see you on November 30th. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the continued public hearing for the 53 Parkerville Road Richardson Tennis Court lights. I am in a butter and will not be attending. The chair will go to Mr. Mills and Mrs. Houlihan.
Recusing myself. Thank you.
All right. So Sarah, can you give us an update, as I assume we're in the same predicament as the 60 Richardson Road?
Sure, yes. So we did receive a second submission on November 9th. That submission was delivered to planning board members as well as department heads for review and given to Fuss and O'Neill to provide feedback comments. They have not provided those as of yet, but they said they are forthcoming within the next few days.
Okay. Tim, any update or changes from your side?
No, I mean, we put in our other submittal with all the response to all the Fuss O'Neill comments, as well as from this board. So I guess if there's any questions from the board tonight that we can address, I'm sure Art is happy to entertain that to get ahead of it. But if not, it's the same as last project. We moved to get this to the 30th as well for the next meeting with approval day of the 4th.
Okay. Jesse, any questions?
No, I do not have any questions. I'll just make the motion whenever you're ready to entertain it.
Okay. Mimi, any questions?
Of course. So question number 29, which had to do with avoiding existing trees and roots wherever possible, was not answered. So it looks.
We did adjust the plans. We did adjust the layout of the path along the edge to avoid the existing trees. There's existing pines that are right in that area. One of the things that we did do was actually adjust the tree line, which was causing some confusion, which made it look like it was part of the tree path, but we did move that electrical line outside of those trees. We also did identify trees that were in that area as discussed in that last waiver. So we did see with the new trench line is on the back side of the court along the edge of the court.
So the tree protection, which is a 8-foot radius from the trunks, will be able to be put into use without the underground and going.
That's correct. And the tree protection line is on the plans. It's a dash line that's inside of the tree symbol. So that 8-foot tree line is actually shown on the plans as well.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. That's it.
All right. Sarah, any questions from the public?
So that was the approval period to December 4th and the meeting to November 30th, correct?
All right, Jesse, one second. I want to see if there's any questions from the public.
Yeah, I don't see any hands raised for this particular hearing.
All right. So Tim, I think if I heard you correctly, you're looking for an extension for the approval period to end of day December 4th, 2020.
Correct.
Jesse?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Mills, aye.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yeah.
Great. So then I'd be looking for a motion to extend the public hearing for 53 Parkerville Road, the Richardson Tennis Court lights, major site plan approval to November 30th at 7:15 PM.
So moved.
Is there a second?
So,
All right. All those in favor? Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Sounds good. We'll see you guys on the 30th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Sarah, I guess we can bring Don and Marnie back, release the chair. While I enjoyed the power for a moment, I'm willing peacefully to transition back to Mr. Moore.
Is Marnie back? There she is.
She's back.
Thank you for the peaceful transition.
You're welcome, Mr. Chairman. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Next item on the agenda is a beginning of a new public hearing. This is for 12A Pine Hill Road, scenic stone wall removal. I will ask Sarah to read the public hearing notice.
Sure. Pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, C40, Section 15C, the Southborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing on November 16th, 2020 at 7:20 PM via virtual Zoom meeting to consider the partial removal of a stone wall at 12A Pine Hill Road, which is designated a scenic road in the town of Southborough. The request for stone wall removal was made by Stephen Kukos to access the property for construction of a new driveway. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law 30A, Section 18, the governor's March 15th order imposing limitations on persons gathering. There will be no in-person attendance by the public. Persons wishing to participate in the meeting while in progress may do so by going online to www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. So
Thank you.
this.
No, go ahead, Sarah.
This is a request for a stone wall removal. I'm going to promote Stephen so that he can be with us. He is looking to remove a partial stone wall for access to the property for construction of a home. I can pull up the plan if that makes sense for everybody.
Yes, please.
Sure. Alrighty. Can everyone see the plan?
Yes.
Okay. Stephen, you all set?
I believe so.
Okay, great. Yep, we can hear you.
Stephen, show us Pine Hill Road, show us the proposed driveway, show us where the opening is being proposed in the stone wall.
Well, I had sent the highlighted plan, and I'm not sure whether or not you can pull that up, but it's pretty self-explanatory from the, there's a picture of the wall there back, if you want to go back up. Basically, I just am looking for permission to remove this. I understand the nature of the rule is to try to protect some more, visually nice looking walls on the scenic road. I don't feel that this particular line of walls, line of rocks applies
I think that it should be pretty easy for us to get through this. Just if you look at the picture there, it's just not even a real wall. It's just kind of like a layer of one, row of rocks. So I was hoping just to remove them. Certainly I can reuse them to, make it a little bit better curb appeal as you pull into the driveway. I don't know that there's enough really there to do anything with. Like I said, it's just one small row of rocks, so I don't know if there's a lot that I can actually pull off with that amount of material. So yeah, I'd be curious to see what your guys' thought is on it, but that is what I'm looking to do. And if you could see, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them as best I can.
Okay, there's going to be some questions because I've looked at the plan, but open it up to the board. Mr. Mills?
Yeah, so Stephen, thank you. And yeah, the stone walls in town are, a concern across the board, I think, and want to be protected. And in the past, where I've been involved, we've looked to see how they can be preserved as best as possible or rebuilt. So I appreciate you already saying that I'm looking to use some of the stone, if it gets approved, to rebuild the wall or, shore it up or make it a nice entranceway. My question is, I can't really tell, it looks like the stone wall goes all the way on the plan past your property onto the neighbors. Is that correct? Further.
It's not something, most of it is covered up either by, debris from trees falling over the years. It's actually hard to say from my memory whether or not it actually extends over to the neighbor's portion of the driveway. I do believe it does, but I would actually have to double check on that.
And you're looking for, how wide of an opening?
I initially wrote 12 feet there, but after talking with my excavator and just for safety purposes out of pulling in and out of the driveway, I was actually going to ask the board for 14 feet. So I could, because there is some scenic trees that do obstruct your view on the right side. If you're pulling out of the driveway, it would be better and safer for my family if when we were pulling out of the driveway, I could pull a little bit further to the left just to allow myself that extra room to see across that tree. Does that make sense?
I guess I don't know what the stone wall has to do with the tree, but.
Well, no, the stone wall doesn't have anything to do with the tree. You asked me how wide we were looking to do for an opening. And I said, I initially wrote 12 feet there, but after talking with, a few people, and especially the person who's going to be doing the excavation work over there, we had sat and just kind of looked at, if my family's pulling out of the driveway, there's a scenic tree that's, there's a tree that's, right against the road, and the trunk is very large. And in order for me to see around it, it helps me to be able to pull, a little bit further left. Just those extra 2 feet to the left would help as far as safety purposes goes. But certainly if you're opposed to that, 12 feet would work. But I'm looking, for my family's sake, just to open that up a little bit. This will be, my family's primary residence, and we'll be a member of the Southborough community. And we have 2 kids, and we're looking forward to it. We just, love to get started on this project.
Yep. So then the disruption in the wall would be 14 feet or 12 feet?
Like I said, 12 feet is acceptable. 14 feet would be preferred. If you guys were willing to allow for that, I would certainly be grateful. Due to the circumstances that I just explained to you about a minute ago, with the safety being an issue coming down that driveway, having more clearance to the left to look around that tree, I think is something to be considered.
And you're, like you stated earlier, you're comfortable with keeping all the stones on site and adding to the wall in other places, correct?
I am willing to do that, yes.
All right. No other questions, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Mr. Stein?
Hey, Stephen.
Hello.
So, hi, do you own
How you doing?
existing house number 14 on the plan?
No, I do not. The previous owner of 12A owned that property and since has sold it. And now I have just purchased this, lot. So separate owners.
Okay, so, I'm looking at page 1, sheet 1 of the plan from the Dropbox, and the locus, it looks almost like the existing driveway for house number 14. Like, do you have like an easement or something? Because it looks like that's on your property.
Yeah, that's a recorded easement, correct? Yes.
Okay. So, the stone wall, like you're basically going to move the stones away from your proposed driveway and put them like in between the two driveways. Is that the idea?
Yeah, if, that's what the board feels needs to be done in this situation, but I don't know, from looking at the picture of the wall that I had sent, I don't know whether or not you guys agree, but, this is really not, I don't think in the spirit of the rule, what you're trying to protect. This is more of just a very small, low-lying level of rocks that, I think if removed, would actually be doing a service to the street versus a disservice. I mean, this is a very easy wall to miss. You're not going to see it now when you drive by. It's a very thin strip.
You know what?
of
And
rock.
I understand where you're coming from, Stephen. I
Yeah.
hear what you're saying. I think, one thing being on the planning board that I've learned is you want to be consistent and treat all proponents like equally. And that's like, that's why, something that seems intuitively like, oh, this doesn't make sense. Why is the planning board asking me to do this? It's because we have to be consistent.
No, I
That's
understand
just
that.
the
I
only way.
understand that. It's and I'm not trying to say, that I'm frustrated in any sense of the word. I'm just happy that, we're at this point in time because we're trying to get, started over there because, whatever you guys see fit, I'm willing to do because I'm kind of under the mercy of, what you guys want me to do there. I'm certainly willing to reuse those rocks and expand, and extend, or expand upon the walls on the right and left side, if that's what you like. But, I was just thinking as far as, visual acuity goes, that you're not going to miss anything here if I was just to remove the rocks and not reuse it. That's my only point.
Fair enough. I would recommend just moving them so that you can create like, something. And I know you don't have a lot to work with there, but move them and reuse them in a fashion that sort of recreates like, the stone wall just in between the two driveways would be my recommendation.
I could certainly add, like right now, it's just one row of rocks. So I could take the rocks that I remove and then try to, go another layer high by, stacking them proportionately. I think that would, obviously allow them to stick out a little bit better than what they do now. If that's something that you guys are open to.
That sounds good. Thanks, Stephen. I'm done.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mrs. Luttrell.
I'm sorry, I got my family here.
It's a family show.
Stop doing these from home.
I agree with what Mr. Stein said. If you could reuse those rocks and try and rebuild or build up the stone wall, be it what it is at this point, I think I would be agreeable to that.
Okay.
Mrs. Houlihan.
Yep, I'm in agreement with the rest of the board.
Well, I go back to what Mr. Stein said. We have to be consistent. There's absolutely no way that those rocks can disappear, can be taken from the site. We have consistently required any of these type of alterations to these historic stone walls for the stones to remain on site and to be used either, as you said, to build up areas of the wall that's not going to be disturbed, placing the rocks there to make the wall a little bit bigger or wider. We've also allowed the proponent to take the stones and curve them, have them 50% of them go on the left side of the driveway and the other half on the right side of the driveway, is creating kind of an entranceway.
Yeah,
that would-
I've seen that, but I don't believe that there's enough material here to work with to make that particular, instance happen where you can, create that curve. I don't believe that there's enough material to make that happen. I could certainly stack them on either side, like you had previously mentioned, but the latest suggestion, I don't see enough there to allow that.
Thank you. Sarah, is there any more, do we hear any from anyone from the public, letters, DPW, fire, police, anybody?
We did not receive any town department feedback on this particular public hearing, and I do not see anybody in the attendees with their hands raised.
So, thank you. As far as the 12 feet versus the 14 feet, I would recommend the 14 feet based on what Stephen indicated would be an improvement for safety, but also a little bit wider. God forbid we ever needed to have a fire truck, and those trucks are enormous, having to go into this driveway, and it's a long, thin driveway, and Pine Hill Road's not exactly a boulevard. So the extra 2 feet, I don't think will be that big of a deal, and create a much safer entranceway, not just for the family, but for any big emergency vehicles. So, Sarah, if there's no other questions, comments, or items to be discussed, is it appropriate then for the board to close the public hearing and vote?
I believe so, but I think, Andrew, do you have something?
I just have one more comment, Mr. Chairman. And Stephen, maybe when you're digging the foundation, if you find similar stones as you're excavating and you felt the need to add to the wall, that might be even more appealing going forward. Could build it up even more. We'd look for, again, there's actually a term, Southborough stones, that are rounded and not jagged and sharp edged, that would be ideal for that. So just a suggestion when you're in the process of building your new home, and welcome to Southborough, but that might, be an added addition if you can use some of those stones that you find during the construction process on the wall as well.
I will certainly take that into consideration. I'm not sure what we're going to find, but if we do, then we'll certainly, take that into consideration.
So what we usually do, I'm not sure because we haven't heard from DPW if they want to be a part to this. So it would either be someone from DPW or the town planner would meet with you, Stephen, or your builder before you disturb the wall, and have a clear understanding of exactly where the rocks are that are to be moved, and be able to document that. And then once the stones have been removed from their current position, the town planner or the DPW, and we can figure this out, would verify that in fact the stones were kept on site and reused. We've had many more than one situations where the stones disappear because they have value. The landscapers love these stones and they charge customers to build walls with them. So this process requires a pre-meeting that would quantify and locate the stones, and then post-construction meeting to verify that they were reused on the site. I think our jurisdiction is only relative to the stone wall at the street. Mr. Mills had a excellent suggestion, but I don't think that that can be a condition of approval. But what I just stated relative to documenting what's there and then documenting and verifying that they've been reused on site is a valid condition of approval. And I would open that up to the board if the board agrees with that or has a better idea. Any questions or comments on that?
Yeah. You said to meet with the DPW, or who did you suggest that I meet with in order to verify which stones are being moved? And then who do I call once?
No, what we would do, I anticipate that we'll have a motion to close the public hearing in a few minutes, and then a motion to approve the removal of the portion of the stone wall with a condition that the stones remain on site and be reused to fortify the rest of the wall that hasn't been disturbed. And that would be checked ahead of time by the town planner or someone from the DPW and then verified afterwards. And what we would do is we would stick this onto the town planner to either say that she'll do it and that's it, or she'll make arrangements with someone from the DPW to do it. And either way, you would be notified as to who you have to deal with.
Yeah,
So
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with that. That makes sense. I guess my question is, as far as timing goes, I mean, this is something that does not require me to come to another meeting. I can just sort of formally meet with whoever's in charge of counting the rocks that I move, and you know, it's not going to take, you know, another 2-week period of time to come back in front of you guys to make sure that the rock's been moved properly, right? Sorry, I'm not familiar with this process.
That's right. You may have been given the impression that you know, things take a long time, but this one shouldn't.
No, this pre-meeting really scared me. I don't know, the one with the baseball field lighting. I was like, whew, my palms were sweaty coming in here thinking about moving this rock wall. Just because, you know, I look at it and I say, man, this is really something that I don't feel was in the spirit of the rule when you look at it. You know, it's not, I know you need to be consistent, but you know, my view was before coming in here, I mean, this is something that's really not acute to an observer's eye. Even if you drive by, you don't see it because it's down low. And you know, anyway, but I digress. I just wanted to kind of get that point across.
So we will, if the motion to close the public hearing passes and the motion to approve this with the condition as I described, if that passes, then the baton goes to Sarah.
Okay.
And she will take the action that the board accomplished tonight, and she will take that to the town planner if she's available. If the town planner is not available, then Sarah will work it out with the DPW. And if DPW says, no, you guys take it, then you'll be dealing with Sarah as soon as tomorrow, Sarah?
Okay.
Yes,
Good.
yep, I'm in tomorrow.
How soon is your excavator available?
Beginning of next week, it's looking like. So, and you know, obviously we need to make those rocks move a little bit so we can get access to the property. So that's why I asked you. So that'd be good if we could connect tomorrow and just sort of get a game plan going, you know?
Sure. we can definitely connect tomorrow. And Stephen, I think you're familiar with the DPW director, Karen Galligan.
Yes,
I believe
yes,
that
she was very
you said
nice,
that
yeah.
she was already on site with you at one point. So, I'll coordinate with her and we'll work together.
Okay, great. That's great. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Right, I mean, Sarah will try to make sure that either she, town planner, or someone from DPW will give you attention to this so that it doesn't impact your schedule.
Much appreciated, Don. I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
And then you'll have to come back for another public hearing. No. Mr. Mills,
Chairman, I make a motion, we close the public hearing for 12A Pine Hill Road scenic stone wall removal.
Seconded.
motion's been made and seconded to close the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Well, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Public hearing is closed. Thank you. Now we need a motion to approve the removal of the wall as conditioned.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we approve the removal of the wall as requested by the applicant up to 14 feet with conditions that the stones from the wall remain and be used on the existing wall on either side.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? You all set with that, Stephen?
I'm good to go. That's what we'll do.
Any questions or comments? Motion's been made and seconded.
Oh.
Mrs. Latrell?
Should the requirement that the stones are inventoried before and verified that they're on site after, should that be part of the condition?
Absolutely.
So moved.
Seconded.
In other words,
Um,
a pre and a post inspection. That's what you're saying?
Yep.
Understood.
Sarah, is there a, this action, if it gets approved, is there a 20-day appeal period? I think there is.
Let me take a look.
Well,
I do not have that here in my notes, but I can verify that tomorrow.
yeah, so if there is, then any action on that wall during the appeal period or before the appeal period ends would be at your own risk, Stephen.
Okay. Meaning what? Like what's gonna, I have to put the wall back if somebody appeals? Is that what you're saying?
Could be.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I'm willing to take that risk. I'm
You would.
anxious
You wouldn't
to
be the
move forward.
first one.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. There was some discussion. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Well, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Very good, thank you. And Sarah, you'll be giving Stephen a call to arrange the next step.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
All right. I look
Bye,
forward to
Stephen.
working with you, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you for helping me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
Have a good day, guys. Thank you.
Thank
You too, thank you. Next item on the agenda is a discussion item, 20 Turnpike Road, New York Bagel Factory roof sign. You have all of this, right, Sarah? There was that one letter from
I do have all of this.
the building inspector.
I'm just gonna remove Stephen here, just kind of multitasking. So yes, this is actually an existing sign. However, it does not appear from the records both here and at the building department that this sign was ever properly given a variance to exist atop the red barn. So now the new owner is looking to change the facade of the sign. But since it wasn't given a variance originally, It looks like at this point, they will be requesting to the ZBA, to have it there kind of in the first place, as it were, even though it's already existing. We did receive a letter of denial from the building inspector stating that she is denying the project, based on, at this time, I cannot issue a roof sign as this is not allowed under the Town of Southborough zoning bylaw, section 174-11C 5-8 roof signs. You may apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance for a sign not meeting zoning bylaw. Please note below the additional requirements for the planning board, which is why Jeff is here representing Signorama in order to have a discussion with this board so that this board can send a memo over to the ZBA based on the 5 criteria that the planning board would be weighing in on. Those criteria are scale, the sign of the scale of the sign determined to be reasonable in relationship to the development scale, viewer distance and travel speed, and sign size on nearby structures. Number 2, sign size, shape, and placement serves to define or enhance architectural elements of the building, such as columns, sight lines, cornices, roof edges, and do not unreasonably interrupt, obstruct, or hide them. Number 3, sign design is in harmony with other signs on the same or adjacent structures and provides reasonable continuity in mounting location and height, proportions, and materials. Number 4, sign materials, color, style, illumination, and form are reasonably compatible with building design, neighborhood context, and use. And number 5, sign size, location, design, and illumination are not judged to present a safety hazard to vehicular or pedestrian traffic. An unfavorable report by the planning board shall indicate which of the following criteria were not met and shall state what modifications to the sign or signs could be made to render a favorable report. So I had drawn up a draft memo for this particular discussion. It was on the Dropbox. Once this board is able to discuss these items, we'll render a memo over to the ZBA. So Jeff, if you want to unmute and just give us a little background from your perspective, that would be great. And I can pull up the sign rendering.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sarah. This is Jeff Newman. I'm the owner of Signorama in Southborough and representing New York Bagel Factory, who also has purchased the Red Barn space, I should say, lease the Red Barn space on the westbound side at 205 Turnpike Road. So they have both locations. And we have secured sign permits for the 205 Turnpike Road for both wall and road. And just by way of background, we also were able to get permits issued for the pylon, the freestanding sign at 20 Turnpike Road. So it was a surprise to myself and to the new tenants, New York Bagel Factory, that there was no permit in place for the roof sign. And because I like to follow the rules, I submitted permit applications for everything. And when we found this out, we wanted to go through this process to try to get a variance for this roof sign. It's my understanding that this roof sign has been in place for many, many, many years. I know the owners of New York Bagel Factory tried to find out from the Red Barn owner just when the sign went up and how long it's been there. And my understanding that information was never obtained, so we're not sure how long it's been there, but it has become somewhat of a landmark for that building. It's really the only place on the structure that is very visible to the Route 9 East traffic. And as a business that's established in Framingham, but getting started in Southborough, as everybody knows, that kind of visibility is very important, at least to get started, to build up your clientele. So our plan is not to touch the roof structure. The Red Barn coffee letters are screwed into the face of that sign.
Excuse me, if I could just interrupt for a second. This is an excellent presentation, but administratively, I want to make sure I know where we are. Maybe I didn't read all the items in the Dropbox, but I did see the letter from the zoning enforcement officer. So is that the last action, the latest action in this, is the letter from the building inspector?
Yes.
So that letter denies the sign, for you to alter the sign, but it gives you the option of going to the ZBA. Have you made an application? Has anyone made an application to the ZBA?
Yes.
And-
Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
And what has the ZBA acknowledged receipt of that?
Yes.
And then what? Have they posted it on an agenda?
Not as yet. My understanding is the planning board needs to hear this and issue a memorandum to the ZBA before they will put it on the agenda, at which time we would, send the letters out to the abutters. It would be advertised, et cetera, et cetera. And
Okay, so
Wait,
has the ZBA in any way, formally or informally, asked us to do this?
yes. So we have been working this process concurrently with the ZBA and the building department. I have been in close communication with Katie over in their office, my counterpart over there. And, she has put this on for their December meeting. So that's why we are hoping to have a discussion and render them a memo in advance of that meeting so that they can move forward with their process in December.
So, let me ask the board, does it seem, and so we're being asked tonight to go through the list of 5? That's being asked of us tonight,
Yes.
and then issue a memorandum back to the ZBA on how the board voted relative to each of those 5 criteria.
Yes.
So I guess I should have really looked at that Dropbox more. Do you plan to show us what you're proposing?
So what I'm sharing right now is the existing sign. And then this is the mock-up of what would be proposed for that sign. My understanding, and I'll obviously let Jeff jump in on this, is that the structure of the sign is not going to change, but the facade is. So maybe Jeff, you can elaborate.
that is
on
correct, Sarah.
Okay.
So-
Okay. Okay, hold on. I'll ask the board, do we have enough information to go through the 5 right now, having looked at the revised sign?
So, yeah, so this memo, is a prerequisite, for this proponent to move forward.
I want to, Sarah, sorry, but this is, there's no more to this other than what you're showing right now. So the board is looking at this and saying, let's go through the 5 and see how, to what extent this change is acceptable relative to the 5 criteria. I appreciate the, the willingness to go through it all, but I'm not sure if we really need to. I'm ready to go through the 5 criteria myself, but I'll ask the board if we want to continue the presentation or to take the action. Mr. Mills?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would like to hear at least like what the sign's going to be made of, and it's not going to be like how it's going to be lit from that perspective, because I think that's going to help me answer the 5 questions in terms of likeness to other signs in the area and character for the area. So well, we can either address that when we get to the question, or we could hear that now.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Sorry for the interruption. Please proceed.
Okay. So the, as I said, the structure will not be touched or changed whatsoever. The Red Barn Coffee letters are screwed into the face. We would remove those letters, and then we would put a new panel right over top of that face. The panel, the black panel that you see, is an aluminum composite material, and the white letters that you see is what we call die-cut vinyl that is applied to the face, and that whole face would then be screwed into the face of the structure, so it's completely secure. The lighting, as you might be able to tell from the existing photo, there are 2 spotlights above the structure. I'm sorry, below the structure, it's below. And they shine up onto the sign, and that is not going to change. May put some new lamps in there that are a little brighter, but those 2 spotlights will remain. So that's the proposal, and that was done to help the bagel, New York Bagel Factory reduce costs for the signage, at least initially, to get them started. And so it's a very nice looking sign. The letters, the New York Bagel letters are 14 inches tall, which is a nice size letter to be seen from Route 9 traveling at 50, 60 miles an hour. And that's what they wanted to be prominent, the New York Bagel. That's what they want people to see.
Very good. So let's go through the 5 items, if that's okay. Any objections to that? Let's go. Sarah, number 1.
Okay, number 1. The scale is in reasonable relation to development scale, viewer distance, and travel speed, and sign size on nearby structures.
I have no questions. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Luttrell?
I question whether this is an allowed use. Like a roof sign is not an allowed use, and it's unfortunate that somehow this non-conforming sign was there and not questioned, but we allow dimensional variances, but we don't allow use variances, and a roof sign is not an allowed use. And even legally non-conforming signs can't be altered at all unless to bring in conformance. So I can't vote for any of these things.
Well, Mimi, I think you're saying you're going to vote that it's not in line with anything. The question, because we have to send a recommendation to the ZBA, And the question is, do we agree that we should allow it, or it shouldn't be? It's like yes or no.
Yeah. The way that the form is set up is it'll be a yes or no from each of the members.
Well, the way I understand Mimi's question is, it's procedural. It has nothing to do with the quality, size, the lighting of the sign. It has to do with, because it's not allowed use, then why, the question is, why would we be going through the 5 items on something that's not allowed?
If I can understand, you say it's not an allowed use, but the sign is not allowed per the current sign bylaw, but that's the purpose of obtaining a variance is to, for the right reasons, to allow something that's non-conforming to be approved. The use, I don't know what that means. It's not an allowed use. A roof sign is not permitted in the town of Southborough, but I don't know what, does that translate to an allowed use?
That's a good question.
It does to me. I mean, a dimensional, if the sign was like larger or taller, those are dimensional variances. But, you know, a roof sign is a defined use in our code, and it's not allowed. And so this is a non-conforming sign. It's questionable whether it's a legally non-conforming sign, but even a legally non-conforming sign cannot be altered at all in the code unless to bring it into conformance. So and we don't allow use variances. So I don't.
So maybe you got cut off at the end there, you muted.
Ooh. That the town of Southborough does not allow use variances, so I don't understand why this is before us. To me, it's not a dimensional variance. It's not taller than what's allowed or bigger than what's allowed. It's a use that is not allowed.
So is it appropriate then for us to ask town council to advise how we are to proceed with this, and maybe even how the ZBA, since at one time the ZBA granted use variances and now that's been removed. It's been removed certainly since this sign was put up, so. Jeff, well, I'll ask the board. I mean, I'm not sure how this will go as far as voting. I'm leaning toward Mrs. Luttrell's. That's kind of why I was asking those questions at the beginning, because it just seemed like this was a questionable procedure for us. But would the board prefer that we ask town council to advise us? Mr. Mills?
Sure.
Mr. Stein?
So I want to make sure I'm 100% clear on this. The concern is that we want to clarify whether or not this process applies for a use variance, not a dimensional variance on a zoning variance, but whether something is an approved use or not. We're just basically clarifying that one point, correct?
I think so.
My recommendation, based on the fact that this sign was already in existence, and the only reason it came to light was because the proponent was trying to follow the rules. I think we need to be fair to the proponent here and go through these questions. It's just a suggestion. I personally feel like the questions, I can answer these questions in favor of the request by the proponent. So just to be fair, maybe it makes sense to do both. You know, maybe we should go through these questions and address them rather than delay to a future meeting while we wait for town council to opine on whether or not this applies. If town council opines that it applies and it can go forward, then that way, at least the proponent is not awaiting a second, meeting for this form to be completed by us. Thank you.
Mrs. Houlihan?
Yeah, I guess I'm perplexed because our town bylaw says no roof signs. So I understand that this building has had a roof sign on it, whether, that town, I don't know when that town bylaw was written. 174-11C58, it says no roof signs. So I guess I would say we can get town council approval, but not approval, but opine on the use variance. But I think regardless, it's a violation of our bylaw. So I'm inclined that it wouldn't really change my mind either way.
What about Mr. Stein's recommendation to go through the 5 questions and assuming that it's okay, that the sign is okay, that a roof sign is acceptable, and then the 5 questions deal with the specific sign. If we went through that tonight and council said no, the only alteration to the sign would be to remove it because it's not allowed, then the 5 questions wouldn't go anywhere anyways. But if town council says, yeah, it's okay, then the proponent would have the action of the board completed relative to the merits of the sign, not the existence of the sign.
I mean,
It's
I'm
kind of
fine
a-
to do that. I just,
I'm sorry, Marty, what did you say?
yeah, I said that's fine. I'm fine to do that. And then we can wait for legal opinion.
Andrew?
I'm good with that.
Why don't we do that? Because Mimi, are you still feeling that you don't want to do the 5 questions?
I guess I could under the caveat that we're awaiting town council's opinion. I also think the illumination is not in conformance on that side.
Let's get to the questions then, because it looks like all 5 of us are willing to go through the 5 questions. Let's see where that takes us. Is that okay, Mr. Newman?
Yes, that would be fine. Thank you.
Number 1, Sarah.
Okay, number 1, the sign scale is in reasonable relation to development scale, viewer distance, and travel speed, and sign sizes on nearby structures. Yes or no?
It's yes, no, or not applicable, right?
Yes.
Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes, if town council opines that a roof sign isn't allowed use.
Houlihan, yes.
Number 2. So that's 5-0. And of course, that what Mrs. Latrell said will apply to all 5 anyways. Number 2.
The sign size, shape, and placement serve to define or enhance architectural elements of the building, such as columns, sill lines, cornices, and roof edges, and do not unreasonably interrupt, obscure, or hide them.
I think that might be NA. Morris, NA.
Mills, an A.
Just a discussion point here. Why are you saying it's not applicable, Mr. Chairman?
I think the way the question is asked, it is asked in a way that doesn't apply to a sign on a roof.
Oh, I see. Okay, I agree then, not applicable.
Agreed. Not applicable.
Agreed, not applicable.
Number 3,
Number 3, the sign design is in harmony with other signs on the same or adjacent structures and provides reasonable continuity in mounting location and height, proportions, and materials.
harmony. That seems to be the key word there. Harmony. Morris, yes.
Oh, I mean, I'm gonna be with Mimi on this one. When you say mounting location, they're gonna say no, because it's not allowed on the roof. So I'm gonna say no.
Mr. Stein,
I'm gonna say yes, in harmony.
Mimi,
No.
Marnie,
I'm going to say no.
number 4.
The sign materials, colors, lettering, style, illumination, and form are reasonably compatible with building design, neighborhood, context, and use.
Yes, except lighting.
Sorry, Sarah, can you say that again?
Sure. The sign materials, colors, lettering style, illumination, and form are reasonably compatible with building design, neighborhood context, and use.
I'll go with Mr. Morris. Yes, except for lighting.
I do not agree. I think that it is compatible in all those categories. So yes, including the lighting.
Do you agree, Mrs. Luttrell, with Mr. Stein?
Unfortunately, no. I think it's in compliance, but the illumination is not in compliance. It's not shielded.
Marnie?
And I'm going to agree with Chairman Morris, Mills, and Luttrell. Yes, except for the lights.
Before we go to number 5, I know when we were doing the lighting at the Fayetteville Town Hall, Village Hall, there was concern about uplighting, and the lights that exist now on this sign definitely go up. Number 5.
Number 5, the sign size, location, design, and illumination are not judged to present a safety hazard to vehicular or pedestrian traffic.
Yes.
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Luttrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
So that's it. Have fun putting that in a memo, Sarah. There's a lot of little pieces there. So Jeff, Sarah will put together that memo and send it off to the ZBA. Is that who you sent it to?
Yes, yes.
And then we'll also work with Sarah and the town planner to do a legal opinion request to town council. That has to go through the town administrator for approval to get an opinion. It may also be inappropriate for us to ask for the opinion. It may be more appropriate for the ZBA to ask for the opinion. And it may be that the ZBA would comment on that or town council, or even the town administrator. So it could go different ways, but I think it's clear that the board is looking for a legal opinion relative to the existence of the sign on the roof.
So just so that I understand process, can we go forward with the December 16th ZBA meeting prior to an opinion being rendered by the town council, or do we have to wait?
I don't think we have the authority to tell you to wait. We've been asked to do the memo. We've performed that process. We will prepare the memo and submit it. I think if I was you, I would press on. It could be because, of course, the ZBA will determine the value of our memo and also have knowledge of our concern about the legality of the sign. But again, we don't want to go beyond our jurisdiction relative to the next steps.
Okay, all right. And one last question is, if town council says that the roof sign just cannot exist, that there is no use variance that would be allowed, is there any recourse after that, or is that the end game?
Don't know.
Okay.
You can see that the planning board has a small piece of this with this memo requirement, but beyond that, I think the questions and concerns you have are outside of our jurisdiction.
Okay. Would I be able to talk to the town council to get answers to these questions, or is there?
Well, you're welcome to try. I don't think he'll discuss it with you. The next step is for the town planner to submit the legal opinion request.
Yeah.
And if that gets approved by the town administrator, then it gets put into town council's inbox for him to take action. If it doesn't get approved, then it stops right there and that's it.
Okay. All right. That's what I needed to understand.
Yeah.
If it
Okay.
is approved, it may come back before that December meeting, perhaps, again, if it goes through to town council as a request approved by the administrator.
All right. Okay, I think I understand. And I appreciate everybody's consideration and taking the 5 questions and giving us your decision on that. That's very helpful.
Well, thank you for the presentation. And again, I apologize for interrupting you. I think we had enough information to move as
Yeah.
we did. And I appreciate Mr. Stein suggesting that parallel path. Anything else, Mr. Newman?
I am good. Thank you for your time, and I wish you all a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Next item on the agenda is discussion, EDC, Downtown Initiative bylaw status. I think, Sarah, you have this one, and I think it's relatively short.
Yes, it is. So last week, there was a joint meeting held to discuss the newest version of the bylaw. Unfortunately, Judy Barrett was unable to attend, so there wasn't a lot of feedback given. Obviously, her perspective is key on answering some of the questions that people have. I do think, though, there was a really good discussion amongst the boards and kind of coming to some consensus about what folks would like to see down there. I was happy to hear, kind of increasing the threshold or decreasing, depending on how you look at it, for affordable housing is something that everyone seems to be really on board with, making that, 1 unit or, the 12%, so whichever, or 25%, whichever is the latter. And so that was really great to hear. good discussions kind of all around. And I know some of the members were there, so if there's anything you all have to add. I know that the Board of Selectmen had discussed meeting again with Judy on the 24th, Tuesday, the 24th at 8 o'clock. You know, since it's a very different year, I think that people have a little more time around Thanksgiving this year. So that was one of the dates and times that she had available. So it looks like that will be likely the next convening to discuss. Nothing new has been received from EDC or Judy at this time.
Any questions or comments on that? Mrs. Luttrell?
Sarah, are you aware of design guidelines that EDC has on their agenda to review and vote on design guidelines, but I haven't seen any design guidelines.
I have not seen any or received any as of yet myself.
Okay.
Hey, Sarah.
Mr. Stein?
Yeah.
What was the progress that was made on the affordable housing front? Can you clarify that?
Sure. You know, I think that in the initial draft, the affordable housing threshold was 12% of 8 units. And it was very clear, given the project area in downtown, that 8 units would not likely be a viable project. And so it was, I think, kind of decided upon that it would be 1 unit or, you know, that 12%, you know,
So here's a hypothetical.
Sure.
So if there was a 3-unit building, like 1 commercial first floor unit and then 2 residential units above it, that one of those units would be deed restricted affordable. Is that the right interpretation of that?
That's my understanding at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Very good. Next item on the agenda is the FY22 Planning Department budget. The town planner and I have discussed this, you know, continuously as we do every year. And she informed me today that she received feedback on our proposed budget that it was not only acceptable, but it was recommended that we add $400 to the budget. There was a line item for longevity that we had accidentally omitted. So our budget actually grew and was considered to be acceptable to move forward, which is excellent news, and excellent reflection of the really superior management that we have in the planning department with Karina and Sarah being able to manage and keep things moving, making progress, and keeping the budget from growing beyond what's recommended. And most of that has to do with salary and, you know, proposed salary increases. Any questions on our budget moving forward? It's really, you know, I've been dealing with these budgets for a long time, and each year it seems to get, the process seems to get easier. And I really could be wrong, but it just seems like Mark Purple and Brian Ballantyne, they just really have made it so much easier on all fronts: the software, the process, the meetings, the communication between what's being asked to be moving forward as a team. And you know, it just gets better every year. And I give Mr. Purple and Mr. Ballantyne a lot of credit for where we are with this. Next
Mr.
item on the
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say thank you for taking the lead on that. I appreciate that as a planning member, planning board member who's been on here for quite a while. I appreciate you doing that for us.
Well, thank you. I take the lead right behind Karina.
Wow.
He's really the
Thanks.
lead. Next item on the agenda is the planners report. There'll be no planners report tonight. Approval of meeting minutes, November 2nd, 2020. Mr. Mills,
Motion to adjourn.
we're interested in
Oh.
approving the
Sorry.
meeting minutes.
Sorry, so moved.
Sorry, seconded.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of November 2nd, 2020 as written has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes. Fabulous minutes as always.
Thanks, Mimi.
Houlihan, yes, I was going to say the same thing. Nice job, Kate.
Thank you.
Excellent. So motion's been made and, oh, did we just vote? Yeah,
We
just
did.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda says that the next meeting is December 14th, and as we discussed tonight, we're inserting an extra meeting for November 30th. Mr. Mills,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Oh, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Morris, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes.
Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes. Thanks for the laugh.
Thanks a lot, Sarah, a lot tonight. Kind of last minute put on you and
Oh, yeah.
excellent job.
Well done, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you.
Kate is
Appreciate
back.
I'm back.
Hey.
See you later.
All right,
Bye,
have a
guys.
good one.
See you guys.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Take care.